Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a really warm welcome to Anglia Ruskin University. My name's Roderick Watkins, I'm Vice-Chancellor, and it's just fantastic to see such a great turnout for this evening's lecture. So thank you for coming, and a particularly warm welcome to anybody joining us for the first time. I hope very much that you are inspired to come back for another visit. So inaugural lectures are a really important event in any university's calendar, and at Anglia Ruskin they're also a particularly kind of happy celebratory event. They're an opportunity for us to celebrate and learn more about some of the outstanding research underway at ARU, led by individuals who have been newly appointed or newly promoted to professors, to leading our academic community and bringing really invaluable and exciting academic leadership to this university. Here at Anglia Ruskin, we organise all of our research in three themes: health, performance and well-being, which reflects our very strong position in health, education and research; safe, inclusive communities, which reflects our absolute desire to promote inclusive ways of living in which the most marginalised and the most vulnerable are protected, cherished and supported to thrive; and sustainable futures, which is a really key and an increasingly key issue for us as we think about our research, but also our education and indeed our university strategy. Sustainability is clearly absolutely key to our students, especially some of our young undergraduate students for whom it's a dominating concern. So this evening's lecture is clearly right at the heart of our research themes and our values and our ambitions as the university. So I'm delighted to congratulate Professor Minna Lammi on her professorship and delighted to welcome you to this evening's lecture. First, I'm about to introduce Professor Mohammed Ali, who is Pro-Vice Chancellor and Dean of the Faculty of Business and Law, who is going to properly introduce this evening's speaker. Mohammed.
Is this the right place or behind? Right. Good evening. Not sure about the word properly, but let me try. So 20 years ago, when I got married, and I met with my wife's grandma for the first time, a really sharp, no-nonsense lady. She looked me in the eyes and she said, "What's this supply chain thing you work in?" I thought, well, an easy question. I gave her a very articulated explanation, and she looked more confused at the end as when she asked the question. And I convinced myself that there's no easy way to explain what supply chain is until I met with a brand new professor, Minna Lammi. Because I think you need a certain mastery in the subject to be able to explain something in simple terms. And Professor Lammi not only have that mastery, but she is a real powerhouse when it comes to supply chains, when it comes to sustainable business models, when it comes to circular economy, right? And she's one of those lecturers who can make supply chain sound exciting. Yeah, if you don't, yeah, some of you don't believe me, you stay till the end and you'll find out. I think the whole interesting part is her expertise in circular economy, right? So for those of you who may be wondering, well, what is it? I won't try and explain it again. I've learned my lesson. So I asked Professor Lammi, what is circular economy? And she said, it's the art of making sure nothing goes to waste, right? Simple. Yeah, that's the mastery. That's the mastery that we are looking at. She is not only a researcher. The strength of Professor Lammi is Professor Lammi has worked with a number of industries solving real-life problems. Sometimes what we say is like the Sherlock Holmes of global planet problem solving, not solving crimes, but solving the issues in the planet, one supply chain at a time, as they say. Professor Lammi has worked at University of Helsinki, and recently was leading a project on the university on the other side of the road. Which one is that? University of Cambridge. Before making the right decision to join ARU in 2021, and since then we have been very lucky with the research strengths and the partnerships and the network Professor Lammi has brought to us. So without any further ado, let's welcome Professor Minna Lammi, an educator, a researcher, and a real sustainable superstar. Professor Minna Lammi.
Thank you. I will be a very non-Finn. I will talk about personal journey here as well. So I will start from journalism because I wasn't planned to become an academic, but I was a journalist first. So I was freelancing in late 1980s. I also later had a company and we had one of the first digital newspapers when internet was something really exciting and new. And on the other side, I did a master's degree at University of Helsinki. I was studying political or international politics and film art. And that led me to archives. Somebody had a project and they wanted me to watch some films. So I said, yeah, why not? That's quite interesting, actually. So I ended up to read those that you can see up there, endless lists of films that have been made in Finland, and choose short films that fitted to the topic. And we were interested about constructing modern Finland and how consumer society was built. And the timeline was from 1920s to 1965. So I choose films from those lists. I still have the lists at home. And the other small picture up there, anybody can guess what it is? Yeah, it is basically library, but those are films. And because films are, well, they are, you have to store them in certain circumstances. So it has to be dry and quite cool. So it's like a big fridge. And this is in near where Aalto University in Finland is. So it's in granite. This is the granite here. And you would ask them to bring you the films to where you can watch them on that table, which is basically the similar table as people use when they make films or used to make films, so non-digital films. We're talking about 35 millimeter film or 16 millimeter film. The man here is Risto Jarva, a filmmaker from Finland. The reason he's here is that this photo is more than 50 years old, so I could use it freely. So I didn't plan to do a PhD, but those films were so interesting things that I thought, oh, it would be sad not to do something with them. So I went back to my supervisor and asked, what do you think? And if there are my PhD students, please don't listen to this, because I would not supervise you to do this, what I did. First, have a massive data and then do the PhD. Don't do that. But anyway, it ended up to be a book, and I later on, because it's in Finnish and no one reads, maybe 5 people have read the book. So I have written something in English as well. So what did we find, or what did I find? One of the key issues here is that I'm looking very drastic change from agrarian society or agricultural society to a modern consumer one. And I argue here that one of the reasons it was so successful was that it was built on the ideas of agrarian ideals or ideology about self-sufficient and progress. And what these films were saying really to the Finns was that you should be a rational, economizing consumer, and also not just think about yourself, but think about the wealth and health of the nation and your community and local community. So even though I wasn't looking really sustainability here, there were seeds in these films. So they were, of course, built on the previous values of the society, but they were also thinking about welfare of everyone. This little article here is talking about plastics, but in a very different way than we would talk today. So it's not about sustainability, it's about how fabulous new material plastics were. And this is how it was introduced to Finns in those days. So there were a lot of other examples like that as well. After I defended my PhD in 2006, I got a text message. Would you be interested on job in National Consumer Research Centre? And I was like, why not? So again, another little seed that just happened. And I joined this research centre. It was under Finnish government, so it was doing not just research, but it was doing a lot of co-creation with companies, with customers, advising government. Of course, they don't always listen to us, but we were trying. Media was calling us often, and we were sort of a hub in this area of consumer research, consumer behavior in the country. So we were connecting also universities, and we were publishing a lot. These books were part of my job, so I did edit a lot of peer-reviewed books at the time. We did quite a lot of interesting things around sustainability. Maybe 30% of the budget came from external funded projects. So we did a lot in that area. No consultancy though. So there was always this public, either public funding or something that we can publish to everyone. And this is one example about interesting things we were doing. Exciting project with Danish center because they were interested in deliberation and asking citizens' opinions about climate change and policy. So before the Copenhagen summit in 2009, we ran in 38 countries participation event with 4,000 citizens, and the citizens were advising their policymakers what they think they should do in Copenhagen. I think when I look back that process, the citizens were really quite radical. They wanted a clear change in policy. So according at least to this process, the citizens were much more radical than the policymakers. But I do understand that making policies, making compromises, so it's not as simple as one would hope. We also, because we are academics, we published a little book, and different people all over the world were looking these deliberation processes in their countries. So that was a nice thing. It was published by Earthscan Routledge. These sustainability projects led to circular economy that started to interest people perhaps more. I mean, we can go further back in history, but maybe if we want to put 1 year, maybe 2010, and after that, people started to really be interested in circular economy. And the first project that we got in from funders was in 2015, which is fairly early, I would say. This little table is from 2 projects that I was doing with a large technological research center back in Finland. And we were looking factors in consumer acceptance and circular business models. And one of the things that I would like to do in the future as well, go back one of these areas or some of these areas, especially this sofa thing. So people are, if they have a strong relationship with the product or with the consumption, they tend to behave differently. And that's, I think, something that we haven't really tackled properly in the sustainability or circular economy area. And this would be definitely something to look more in the future. I don't go too much to the details in this, but I go back to my personal journey. Anybody here? I know there are people online who would recognize this building, this yellow one. Outi, sorry. You are the only one who could perhaps recognize it. This is the yes or no question. Do you recognize it? No. Yeah, that's King's College, yes, true. So this yellow building is the social science building at Helsinki University. So in 1996, I did my master's degree there. Then I went out and did other things in journalism and in my company. And then 2006, I did my PhD, or defended my PhD there, and went out to this research center under the Finnish government. But the policymakers made decisions without necessarily asking from small people. So in 2015, well, the decisions were made earlier. 2014, the government decided to send 2 small research centers to University of Helsinki and to this faculty of social sciences. Some of the funding was also cut from the bigger centers, and it went to the Finnish Academy. So I went back to the same building and I thought, oh no, this is the personal circular economy. I'm back here. I need to do something. And because of some of the projects, we had not connection quite to the King's College, but to the Cambridge Uni. So I ended up to a long-term visitor at IFM, Institute for Manufacturing at Cambridge University. That was 2016. And we then run some really interesting projects that was looking metal industry, circular economy in metal industry, how to support communities to build local circular economy. This photo is from Lappeenranta, which is in eastern part of Finland, not far away from Russian border. And they were keen on working with us, not just the metal industry there, but when pulp and paper industry heard that we are running these workshops and looking how they can build the circular economy in the area, they knocked our door and came along as well. And the area did a roadmap for themselves to find more ways to be sustainable and circular. So that was quite interesting, and we also then advised policymakers in national level, and there were some nice outcomes here, especially what comes to the battery industry and then as well the metal industry and some local areas there. So after this project that ended 2019, there's been quite a lot of initiatives in this area still. So it had definitely some practical outcomes. But we did also some papers during those times to more of a political side of the circular economy. So we were looking, for instance, what citizens are saying and what policy priorities are. This is European Union level. So what we found here is that citizens actually, their view is much wider than what policy priority areas are, which is very understandable. People are thinking about health and well-being, they are thinking about climate change and climate threats, and they are also combining these with circular economy initiatives. This little photo is from Cambridge, and this is the small research group that was partly here and partly in Helsinki. And we did, we were interested also about the communication. We were interested in innovation and where the innovations might happen. And we were looking both academic papers, policy makers, policy papers, and industrial discussions. And what we found at the time was that the focus that was similar to everyone was efficiency, waste, economic growth, and recycling. And the innovation theories are saying that that is the area where the innovations tend to happen. But we can also see that there would be a lot of opportunities around there because obviously the different parts of the society are talking about different things. And if we don't talk about similar things, we don't find solutions to that or for that. And this is something that drives me. I want to widen these areas that we understand that we have problems, we can solve them, hopefully, and we can change our world. Joining ARU in 2021. So I was a long-term visitor at IFM, and then I saw a position here and landed here very happily. I like that bird. It's very nice. But they do come and eat your frogs in the pond, I have to warn you. I almost put a photo of that, but I decided to take it away last minute. So when I joined ARU, there was a very interesting project going on here, and that was about circular economy. It was also looking at something that I hadn't been doing before, so job creation in circular economy. And we were creating training programs for social enterprises to deliver. And we upskilled about 1,500 individuals. I am still planning to track this down because I'm quite keen on knowing if these people got jobs in circular economy. We know that some did, but we haven't tracked this. The project ended 23, and this is something that I think we need to do to understand really if these little modules that were delivered, and they can still do that, if they really helped to build new jobs, as the local council, for instance, hoped. And we also know that this is not such an easy area because, I mean, I can go perhaps to, I will come back to that, but this is looking Finnish examples about circular economy markets, and it's looking how companies find different strategies in circular economy. And large companies have very different ways of dealing with that. And it's the small, micro and SMEs that tend to then perhaps create business models that are based on circularity. They might also have these new jobs, but they also tend to close the loops, as circular economy researchers would say. So they will find business opportunities in the areas where the large established companies can't really find their way, or they are too, let's say, it doesn't fit to their business. So my understanding in this project is that it is mostly the small or micro companies that will bring these jobs, but I don't really have proofs, not proofs enough that I could say this is how it is. So I think this is one of the areas that I would really want to look at. And one of the reasons is that there are a lot of political hopes in this area that circular economy would be an area where there will be new jobs. But is that really the case? I don't think we have good enough proofs yet. But it was a nice project, and it was nice to land here to do something familiar to me. And I also learned to work with a lot of people, with the local council, and got interesting networks that I didn't have before. Back to this picture. Again, this is something I would rather like to do more, because this is just looking examples of companies who do have circular economy strategies, who are trying to get into that area. But understanding really these markets and how they work would need more work. So this is one of the areas I'm hoping to look at later on. I have no idea how long I've talked, but I think I'm doing well. And these are the few last slides, so maybe I've been too quick. So when I joined ARU, I had something else that came with me, and this goes almost back to the very beginning. So I'll do that, which is annoying. There we are. So going back to digital newspaper and technology, and I have published something in that area as well, but it's not my core research area. However, a few years ago, 2019, somebody called me. You have 6 hours to apply. I suggest you would do this. So, and I can help you if you need some help. But surely your CV is ready and so on. So I said, okay, I'll call you in an hour. I have a think. And the colleague was asking if I would apply as a program director to this program that had already started, Culture in an Increasingly Technologically Driven Society. So it wasn't to do with sustainability, it wasn't to do with circular economy, but it was still something really interesting. And these programs were funded by the money that was taken from some of the research centers like us who were sent to the University of Helsinki and the others. So the money went around. So I applied and I got the funding, and I brought this funding to ARU as well. And it will end this year, but it's been a really interesting work. My position here is to lead the program, but not as a researcher, but making sure that the program is making impact in society. So this mysterious thing was something we did for Social Security Committee to help them to think about legislation and digitalization. And we did some other work also around sustainability with them. They are looking the legislation as a whole, and they are sitting 6 years, so it's a long, long time they are doing that. And so far, there's been really interesting outcomes from this program. So there are one program is looking at consumers, digitalization, and how we can help especially young people to understand how to navigate in the modern consumer society. One project is looking at Social Security, so this is pretty much what we did with the Social Security Committee and the Finnish Parliament. But we've been doing other things as well with the different parties in Finland, having one-to-one discussions with them about any topics really they are interested in, from digitalization, but sometimes suddenly the sustainability comes back here as well in the discussions, because these two things are often combined. So that has been really interesting project for me. And one other thing has been really helpful as well, that I've been working closely with the funder. So seeing that how research funders work and how they think is something that is not easy to put into your CV. Well, you will want to do that, but it's something you will only see if you are working closely with them. And this has been a project where I could have done that very closely. So it's been very, very interesting work. Doesn't necessarily come with outputs in the journals or anything like that, but I think it has its value anyway. And I've been fortunate that I think here at ARU people have thought that it's an interesting project. So what's next? I've been sort of saying bits and pieces about that, but one of the things I'm working at the moment is exploring something new again, as we would as researchers. So not thinking what after sustainability. So we are looking regenerative manufacturing, trying to understand what on earth it is, and don't please ask that. Ask anything perhaps, but don't ask what it is, because we don't know yet. But we've been reading, we've been looking at company initiatives, and we are writing about that. So fingers crossed we will submit something this year. Maybe we have a more clarity what it could be. Let's see. And then we are also looking something with a colleague of mine, hello, about patterns in sustainability transformations, so back to sustainability. And let's see where that goes. Pattern is an interesting word because, again, it's something a bit unclear, and we are not sure where this work will go either. But that's the typical thing with the academia and academic work. We don't quite know where we are going, but at some point we will have some sort of clarity. And I'm also hoping to look more closely that picture that I showed you about the Finnish companies and the company strategies, and try to understand better how circular economy markets evolve and what sort of strategies companies could do so that they would be successful in that. And even though I'm talking about strategies, businesses, I think we all have the common goal to make a sustainable transformation. So we can't just think about money, but I do understand that the businesses do have to make financial profits as well, otherwise they can't survive. And I know that very well myself as well, because I've had my own company too. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for listening to me. Any questions? It was him.
Thank you so much, Minna. Thank you so much. A really exciting. It's a bit of a teaser lecture. I want you to come back in 3 years and tell us what regenerative manufacturing are, and answer just some of the questions you pointed to. Really interesting lecture. Thank you so much. Minna has very kindly agreed to take questions. So I'm hoping that there's a colleague here who's going to very kindly run this microphone around the hall for your questions. Please don't ask your question until you have the microphone, because we're trying to make sure that we can capture it for the online audience. So there's a question here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minna, for a really interesting talk and sort of wander through the sustainability forest that you've been on. I was talking to a friend yesterday who works in sustainability around construction and so on, and she told me a rather alarming factoid, which I'm probably going to get wrong, but it's something like there is now more human-made material mass on the planet than there is biomass, and that amount is doubling every 20 years. So I'm wondering whether part of regenerative manufacturing and the regenerative economy might be to start to repurpose some of that already human-made material that's sitting there in various landfills or whatever waste sources we put it in, or indeed percolating through the oceans at the moment, and turning that into the new materials that we might want or need. I wondered if you had any reflections on that at all.
I was hoping no questions about regenerative, but yes, I do think that that's probably one of the avenues we want to look at, because otherwise, what do we do with all this stuff that we have? And that's, of course, part of the business models in circular economy as well, not just materials, but everything. So not just taking things apart, but reusing. We need to have solutions for that, and maybe we don't need to use those new raw materials anymore. We just use what we have already created. I think that's a bit of an idealistic thing, but somewhere there we should aim.
Minna, thank you very much for a very, very interesting lecture and for being such an integral part of an excellent research culture in the faculty. You and I have joked before about the similarities of growing up and living in northern cold climates, despite our two countries being quite far apart. I do see similarities, I think, in engagement with circular economy in Canada and in Finland. Do you find that there's a geographical or cultural aspect to the degree in which consumers or businesses are willing to engage?
I'm sure. So I don't know Canada that well. I've been there a few times, so I can't really say about the culture in Canada. But in Scandinavian countries, definitely, I think the culture, the strong feeling of community is obviously one of the factors that are really, really important. And I think we can see that in Asian countries as well, I would say. And of course, China has been one of the forerunners in circular economy. I didn't mention it here, but it is obvious that they have been very early on looking at that for obvious reasons. I wonder if the climate has anything to do. I mean, the cold countries might have needed to think differently certain aspects, for instance, in the living. So, but that I don't know. But I think cultural things definitely have aspects here, and that's perhaps something we should also look at more closely, because now we're talking about global supply chains, but we should perhaps think about also how to bring those local circular economies and then global ones together.
Hi, Minna. Thank you very much for a lovely lecture. Very enjoyable. You managed to get through your whole lecture without mentioning, apart from just now, net zero, absolute zero, and perhaps beyond absolute zero. Would you like to make a comment about how your research is contributing to net zero, sort of absolute zero, and perhaps beyond net zero?
Well, what did you say last?
I know you have a view on it.
Yes. I mean, it's so obviously important that I didn't even think about that. That's one of the things that, of course, all these initiatives are contributing to that. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say, really. And I see also, I go back to regenerative. I think that's also part of the new thinking about how can we do sustainability better. And that is part of it.
Wonderful. Again, thank you for the talk. As several people have already thanked you, I'll join with that one. I'm really interested, Minna, in the way that you've taken us on a journey around the role of the citizen and the state. Because in your early work, you started with citizens being educated in how to use plastics by state agencies. And you then, in the middle of your work, you highlighted the role of the gap between the citizens' expectations of what a circular economy might be and the state's expectations, which are rather more delimited, I think, to reducing the use of waste resources, whereas there's a much more wider expectation. How do we close that gap? How do we bring the roles of the state more into those kinds of wider remits that the citizenry are demanding? And of course, in the current geopolitical climate, I'm asking that in a context where states are removing themselves from the Paris Accords or from some of the commitments that have been made to net zero targets and have been made in Copenhagen, where you studied that. How do we move the pole back more towards what the citizenry are actually expecting from a genuinely circular economy?
As a journalist, former journalist, I really think that we need discussion in the society. I really, really think that we need to talk about things. And of course, it's much more difficult now than those days when the newspapers and the, let's say, BBC was the one that everyone followed. And now the world is full of misinformation and media that is telling all sorts of stories. So I think it's more challenging. And I think in democratic societies, we really have that challenge. And I think education is one of those things that are really, really important. So we just have to carry on and try to do this job and talk and talk and talk. And this is also the way how we get the different areas in society to talk about similar areas. I don't think there's any easy answer to that, but we all know that. Yes, well, it is. Yes.
Thanks for that, Minna, and also thank you for just being such an inspiring and generous colleague across the faculty in terms of the research culture, and it's just wonderful to work with you. My question, I suppose, follows up a bit from Chris's, which is, when you've been working with businesses, have you seen a change in narratives? What are the blockages? And I suppose, in a sense, how do we guard ourselves against that sense of despair, which Chris hinted at when you're negotiating your academic work?
That's one of the things why I am quite optimistic, because I've seen how businesses have been becoming more and more interested in sustainability and doing good for the whole society. And there's been a shift there. There are also, I mean, they are very serious, and I'm seeing this in demand as well. So I think that's one of the positive areas we can look at. And if businesses, and this is perhaps also something I would answer differently if I was still in Finland. So if I think about Scandinavian countries, they are very much policy driven in many ways. So, but in the UK, I think this is much more business driven society. And I think we can think that the drivers can be different in different areas of the world. It doesn't mean that the businesses are not important in Scandinavian countries. They are, of course, but the policy making is, and perhaps there's a smaller gap in between policy making and businesses there than here. I don't really know, but I think businesses here are definitely driving the change. And I would hope that citizens and consumers would drive the change more as well. It's not very simple, but I am hoping that especially the young generation would do that. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
Minna, thank you so much. And thank you so much for ending on an optimistic note and a call to action, I think, for all of us as educators and just as citizens to think about our role in this work. I was tempted to ask you something about our new government and their rhetoric around economic growth, and in particular Cambridge. So Cambridge is really a hub for the new government's ambition for growth, and what place you think circular economy has in their thinking. Is there anything you might be able to say about that? Are you?
So one of the reasons I think why circular economy has been so attractive is that it is sort of business friendly. It's been looking opportunities for business to grow as well. So not just saying that we have to regrow. And going back to even 1990s, there was quite a lot of political hope in Finland that we would start to think differently, and we would, for instance, like more luxurious things and consume less but better things. And maybe there are some business opportunities there as well. But I think that if we are very clever and if we are very optimistic as well, maybe we can solve this puzzle together. I mean, humans have been very successful, and I really, if you look history back, we've made a lot of progress. We made a lot of harm too. So we would need to balance that.
Thank you very much. I hope you have the ear of policymakers. Please may I thank you all very much for coming, and please may I invite Mohammed to thank Minna on behalf of his colleagues. You look surprised, Mohammed. This is all part of the gig.
Here we go, here we go. I was too engrossed and too blown away by this wonderful presentation, Minna. It was interesting because you were not just focusing on the number of journal articles and output and everything, you kept on talking about the impact. Here we go, that's it. So I think the impact was at the core of things, and I think working with the industry is a key element to what you have achieved now. I liked your Venn diagram about the sort of government, industry, and university, and there could be an overlap when three of these come up. Clearly something to do with your blown away presentation, as I said earlier. And finally, I mean, one other lesson is we need to be nice to journalists because they may end up becoming a great academic. So on that note, thank you very much, Professor Minna Lammi, for your brilliant, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I'm surprised, right? Thank you. Thank you very much. Faculty and the university, here is something for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I think the camera there.
Ah, okay. We need to smile. Good. Are we going to the newsletter?
Here we are. Thank you.
Drinks?
Yeah, complete. So there are drinks and some nibbles outside. Here we are.